A university is a dynamic thing, always seeking, stretching, and generating new ideas. Iowa State, seeking, stretching, and growing in its first 100 years, became one of the nation's foremost land-grant universities, solidly grounded in agriculture, home economics, engineering, veterinary medicine, and the basic sciences. Iowa State distinguished itself in teaching, research, and public service. Its influence was felt in every town and township, and through its graduates in every state and in foreign nations around the world. But in the mid-1960s, a remarkable confluence of forces began to propel this university to heights exceeding all previous hopes and dreams. In 2 breathtaking decades, teaching responsibilities more than doubled. New research pressed further back the boundaries of the unknown. New buildings arose from the Green Hills. An entire new South Campus was born. Course offerings expanded and melded the humanities with Iowa State's traditional strengths to bring forth a truly broad-based university. All this and more came in 20 years of remarkable development that will cast its shadow well into the next century. Understandably, these years, from 1965 to 1986, will be known as the Parks years.
I certainly do not object to the last 2 decades being known as the Parks years. In all candor, however, such a label does me a great deal more credit than I deserve, because there have been a great many people who have participated in, have contributed to any success this university has had during those years. And this is the way I really think it should be. My philosophy of administration, from the day that I became president of Iowa State University, back in July 1, 1965, has centered around the belief in broad participation in policymaking and in shared responsibility in administration. I believed then, and I'm even more convinced now, that the president of such a great and diverse university as Iowa State cannot perform his or her leadership function well unless he or she is surrounded by good people in the immediate circle of his or her administrative colleagues, and I have been very, very fortunate in the choice and performance of my administrative colleagues. But beyond that, he or she, whoever is president, must be surrounded by good people throughout the entire university, people who will do their job conscientiously and well, whoever is president, or if there were no president at all. I'm immensely grateful for the honor and the privilege of having been associated with just that kind of people throughout my years as president of Iowa State University.
Wherever you go on this beautiful campus, you see the signs of Iowa State's emergence as a university of international science. In his inaugural address, President Parks called for a blending of the sciences and humanities in what he termed a new humanism. He expressed the belief that the education of the scientist and technologist should be within the context of a liberal education. That charge set in motion a chain of events which transformed what had begun as a model farm into an institution of higher education with concerns for the full range of humanity's most urgent needs. Iowa State maintained its formidable leadership in agriculture, home economics, engineering, veterinary medicine, and the basic sciences. But the flowering of the humanities, the liberal arts, the fine arts, and the performing arts brought a new dimension to the university's image and efforts. The lives and learning opportunities of its students were immeasurably enhanced. Three new colleges, education, design, and business administration came into being. Disciplines grew, matured, and earned independent status in such areas as history, government, philosophy, speech communication, English, and sociology. New undergraduate programs were added, ranging from agricultural biochemistry to computer engineering, music, anthropology, international studies, religious studies, and social work. More than 20 new graduate programs were added in such diverse fields as biomedical engineering, community and regional planning, public administration, and water resources. The honors program was strengthened to challenge the most talented of the undergraduates to pursue independent study in areas of their personal interest. Iowa State's growth and development attracted national attention. The university's broadened role in the humanities brought forth a chapter of Phi Beta Kappa, which took its place on the campus alongside Phi Kappa Phi. For only the second time in its history, the president of Iowa State was chosen as president of the National Association of State Universities and Land-Grant Colleges. And for the first time in history, its president was named president of the Association of American Universities, an organization of 52 of the leading research universities in Canada and the United States. New construction was another mark of the park's years. Building cranes loomed continually over the Iowa State skyline. No fewer than 37 major new buildings or major additions, nearly 2 a year, came online, and a massive effort to meet the needs of an enrollment that nearly doubled. In those 2 decades, the total investment in those additions came to $253 million. Estimated replacement cost today, nearly $580 million. In a period of just 6 years, from 1969 to 1975, the Iowa State Center and the stadium emerged from a cornfield. These buildings were gifts to the university and the state of Iowa from alumni, friends, and students. Total cost, $27 million. Present replacement cost, probably $72 million. With the nearby addition of a new College of Veterinary Medicine, a whole new South Campus was created in less than a decade. Then there were residence halls for both single and married students, and major classroom buildings wherever you looked. Striking new buildings for new colleges, and efficient and beautiful renovations and remodelings of other buildings. In 2 decades, the Iowa State Physical Plant was transformed into a teaching and research facility worthy of a university with national and international influence and obligations. Laboratories such as this are characteristic of the growth in one of Iowa State's traditional missions, research. Responding to the needs of a state and nation undergoing tremendous economic, social, and technological stress, Iowa State University's powerful research program has undergone great change and adjustment in the last 2 decades. As the shortage of oil and gas threatened to throttle the nation's economy, Iowa State took the lead on energy research. As the economic crisis gripped farm and town alike, Iowa State's economists earned national recognition and respect at the highest political levels. As environmental concerns moved to center stage, researchers in the labs and in the fields sought ways by which a growing population could live safely in an agricultural world infused with chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, and an urban world imperiled by hydrocarbons and chemical wastes. High tech were the buzzwords of the 1980s. But Iowa State was high tech long ago. The university contributed importantly to two of the most dramatic developments of this century: the production of atomic energy from uranium and the invention of the electronic digital computer. Now, Iowa State is moving into the areas of microelectronics, biotechnology, productivity enhancement, and alternative energy resources. Iowa State researchers are on the move, looking not just at the next decade, but the next century as well. Knowing that answers to perplexing problems must come from intensified research, Iowa State increased its research budget by 300% in 2 decades. It exceeds $65 million annually. Look at them, the students. They flock to Iowa State University in record numbers. In 20 years, enrollment has soared from 12,400 to more than 26,000. Quality came as well. More National Merit Scholars enroll at Iowa State than in any other university in Iowa, more than in any other Big 8 school. In fact, Iowa State ranks 23rd among all the nation's universities in the number of merit scholars. Each year, hundreds of the finest students across the country compete for scholarships offered by the ISU Achievement Foundation. Quality attracts quality. Enrollment of women and minorities has increased enormously, and the number of adult students 25 years and older has doubled and now exceeds 5,000. More than half of all Iowa State students come from the top 25% of their high school classes. You might not think this old building is a reflection of the newness and growth of this university, but it is. It is headquarters of a major emphasis, Iowa State's international commitment. One of President Parks's first acts was to initiate a study of Iowa State's role in international affairs. As a result, Iowa State's campus reached out to embrace the world, and that activity is centered in the Old English Office Building. Young Americans come now to study and live in an atmosphere culturally enriched by the presence of students from more than 100 foreign countries. Enrollment of international students has risen to 2,400. International students learn American ways, and Americans in increasing numbers study the languages and literatures of other countries and co-major in international studies. And they study abroad. International scientists and political leaders beat a path to Iowa State. Since the 1975 opening of Sheeman Continuing Education Building, thousands of foreign visitors have attended international conferences here. 70 countries were represented at ISU's World Food Conference of 1976. Responding in the extension tradition, Iowa State faculty members and researchers have taken their expertise to less developed countries in Asia, Africa, South America, and Europe. These experiences, combined with the number of high-ranking third world government officials who are Iowa State alumni, have opened doors to international export trade on which Iowa is heavily dependent. Iowa State's expanded international involvement is one of the university's most significant developments of the last 2 decades. Of all Iowa State's spectacular accomplishments of the last 20 years, none exceeds that of the heart of its academic life, its library. The library's collections have tripled in size, and two major additions have made this building a superb modern setting for study and research. New emphases on the humanities, social sciences, and the arts, while continuing to build on the institution's long preeminent collections in science and technology, have brought even broader recognition to the Iowa State Library as a major state and national resource for teaching and research. Appropriately named the William Robert Parks and Ellen Sorge Parks Library in 1984 with the completion of an $8 million addition, the library saw its use jump from 1.5 million patrons a year to more than 2.5 million patrons a year. The library's holdings of scientific journals and serials are among the best in the nation. The library's state-of-the-art media viewing center, completely outfitted for video, audio, and optical disc, is exceptional, as are its computer facilities and services. The Department of Special Collections houses more than 25,000 rare books, 2 million manuscripts, and 430,000 historical photographs. Soon to join the Parks Library as a part of the university's academic heartbeat will be the new $10 million computation center. It will be the very nerve center of the electronic network linking every college, and will speed present computing capacity for faculty by 10 times and for students by 50 times. Standing side by side and linked together, these two great learning and research tools, the Parks Library and the Computation Center, will help propel Iowa State into the next century. Out over the state, places like this have sent a signal to the university. Iowa's main streets, farms, and businesses have been altered remarkably and in some cases disastrously in the last 20 years. They have been pummeled and buffeted by crises in energy, environment, world events, and economics. As it has from the day it opened, Iowa State has responded to these people's needs. Early in his administration, President Parks consolidated university extension services into a single unit to better serve the state. And today, university extension is in the forefront in helping Iowans cope with the constantly changing challenges of the times. Iowa State's extension economists have been nationally acclaimed for the attention they have focused on the farm crisis. Extension specialists in agriculture and home economics have supported field staff who have counseled thousands of farm families confronted and confounded with overwhelming financial and emotional problems. Specialists have worked with thousands of families and youths whose dietary needs have been put under great stress by economic conditions. 4-H work, now in both town and country, continues to benefit and involve thousands of youths and volunteer leaders. Specialists from CIRRUS, the Center for Industrial Research and Service, advise Iowa's small businesses. Other extension representatives work with chambers of commerce and local governments in helping to stimulate economic development and adapt to the modern methods of the computer age. Computers link county and area offices to the central campus as the latest crop and pest information is made instantly available to every area of the state. Conferences are organized to help farm operators, business people, and professionals in engineering and other fields make use of computer technology. As Iowans attempt to adapt and cope, more than 80,000 each year turn to the hundreds of extension credit programs and non-credit conferences held throughout the state and on Central Campus. As was the case with its famous corn trains of the last century, TV and computers of this century, Iowa State is now moving into video satellite technology to more effectively assist agriculture, business, and industry. University extension at Iowa State has been in the forefront of the changes sweeping over Iowa in the last 2 decades. It will continue to be. Among the changes that have rolled over these green hills of Iowa State in recent years, none has been greater than the revolution in the arts, both performing and visual. Magnificent new facilities set the stage for a true flowering of the arts. C.Y. Stevens Auditorium, Fisher Theater, Brunier Gallery and Museum, the new music building and galleries in the College of Design. Each vastly changed the image of Iowa State and added a new dimension of humanism to university curricula. Within little more than a decade, the great orchestras of the world had performed on the Iowa State campus with envious reviews from coast to coast. On the campus, the sound of music was everywhere. And dance students choreograph, perform, and work in various dance groups, including a dance tour company. Students serve as actors, set and costume designers, makeup artists, technicians, directors, and managers in performances in Fisher Theater. Running parallel are year-round productions sponsored by Student Union Board in Memorial Union's widely known maintenance shop. The Brunier Gallery and Museum bring exhibits, lectures, tours, special presentations, and art sales, which attract 40,000 visitors a year. In addition to the Brunier collection itself, featuring ceramics, glass, and dolls, the museum offers a wide range of visual arts: prints, painting, drawings, sculpture, photography, crafts, and tapestries. The flowering of the arts has truly been one of the most conspicuous and spectacular changes to have occurred on the Iowa State campus. Spectacular describes the growth and development of Iowa State athletics over the past 2 decades. From the Armory to Hilton Coliseum in 1971. From Clyde Williams Field to Cyclone Stadium Jack Trice Field in 1975. The Southwest Athletic Complex in 1980, providing baseball, track, tennis, and softball facilities second to none. Sellout crowds for both basketball and football. Launching of a full-fledged women's athletic program with women's cross-country and track titles in the Big 8, nationally, and an Olympic gold medal winner. In men's gymnastics, Big 8 championships and ranking among the nation's top 10 each of the last 20 years. Throughout the period, Cyclone wrestlers were nationally ranked, and in 1972 earned 3 Olympic medals. In 1984, the Cyclone men's track team won both the indoor and outdoor Big 8 titles, and among many other honors, had 4 athletes in the Olympic Games. Iowa State is one of 3 Big 8 schools to sponsor the full complement of 21 sports. Far more important than buildings and victories, however, is the commitment so clearly established during these last 20 years that athletics should first serve to enhance the education of young people. Nothing more clearly demonstrates the explosive growth of this university than to realize that 2/3 of all living Iowa State alumni have graduated during the Parks years. In those 2 decades, alumni numbers grew from 45,000 to 128,000. But the impact of alumni on the explosive developments which took place on the campus was even more dramatic than their numbers. Nothing so completely changed and enhanced the image of the university as the Iowa State Center. Alumni, joined by faculty, friends, and students, provided this magnificent complex as a gift to their university. Visitors continue to marvel. Without breaking stride, they built the stadium. The construction of such magnificent improvements as the Parks Library addition and the $30 million agronomy building were catalyzed by alumni seed money and support. Then they focused on the academic needs of the university with gifts in wills, land, equities, and cash. They met the original $50 million goal of excellence in the 80s in a mere 3 years, funding the most critically urgent of those needs not met by state funds. These efforts were spearheaded by those captains of industry, the Board of Governors, and members of the Order of the Knoll, whose ranks grew to more than 800 in 17 years. But many thousands joined the effort, including graduating senior classes, who have been pledging gifts averaging $150,000 before they even leave the campus. Now energies are focused on constructing the Computation Center, which grows out of the university's single largest ever gift, $3 million from alums Chuck and Marge Durham of Omaha. Always, alums have made the difference. But especially has that been so in the last 20 years of the university's eventful life. They will be remembered as the Parks years, but they belong to all who shared in this exciting era. Bolstered by the achievements of those years, the university is poised to advance into a new era. There are opportunities for all, students, faculty and staff, alumni and friends, to participate in the continuing development of this great university. The things we do today and tomorrow to strengthen the university's capabilities in teaching and research and public service will leave their stamp on Iowa State University as a new century dawns.